And if that gavel worked, and apparently it does. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 15th Regional Council Body board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. The chair detects a quorum. Before we get into our business, the Middle Tennessee family, especially Humphreys and Hickman County, suffered a tragic loss on October the 10th. So Mayor Pedrega, would you please offer some remarks before we have a moment of silence?
Sure, I appreciate that. As you all know, we had the explosion at AES, which is a manufacturing production facility that sits right on the Humphreys-Hickman County line. They actually have buildings and infrastructure on both sides, but you know what I can say, that 16 lives lost, and you know it's such a tragedy. Obviously, you know, our hearts and prayers are with the families and the loved ones lost. But, you know, I will also say that with every tragedy, there are also blessings. It's amazing the community, how they come together, not just the local community, but across the state and the country, and the help that people offer. Many of you all, if you sent assets and you've reached out, and just, you know, the prayers probably most importantly of all. So it's been amazing, and there are many blessings that come from it. I say, and I don't hold this quote directly, but I'll say it the best I can. James chapter 4:14 talks about that no one knows what tomorrow brings, and that, you know, our life is but a wisp of smoke or puff of smoke. It's here one minute and gone the next, and there's nothing more true than that. And if things like this help people with the conversion of their hearts and maybe recognize that, think about it, you know, that's just one more blessing that comes from it. So we appreciate y'all. We appreciate the prayers and everything else that happened. And, you know, we're a resilient community, to say the least. So we're going to be okay, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please stand for a moment of silence. Memory of the families who've lost loved ones. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting were sent out ahead of time. When you're ready, I'll entertain a motion and a second to approve. Thank you. Thank you for the motion and the second. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All in favor of those minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. And the minutes are adopted. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Any member of the public here that wishes to address the board? Hearing none, we're now ready for next item is information items. Michael, would you please introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be with you again this month. What we have for you as far as information this morning is another look, sort of a deep dive into our annual work program that's adopted by our board of directors and endorsed by the board of directors and adopted by this body each June. You'll recall at the August meeting, we did a review of some of the environmental planning initiatives that we have underway across Middle Tennessee. This slide here represents the matrix of services that GNRC provides its communities and its partners. It's organized by social services, planning services, ECD services. All of this is detailed in the annual work program that's online at gnrc.org/annual budget. Back in August, I should say, we did an overview of what we were working on in partnership with you all across Middle Tennessee, but related to our environmental planning efforts. We talked a little bit about our emissions reduction work, our watershed-based planning work, and our brownfields inventorying that we're engaged with across Middle Tennessee. Today is what we're calling part one of a look at some of the community development initiatives that we have underway in partnership with you all across Middle Tennessee. But today's part, we're going to focus on an upcoming major update to our regionally approved comprehensive economic development strategy, which is a federally required document that provides a lot of benefit to our region that I'll talk about here in a minute. And then part two, it's scheduled for December 10th, which is the next convening of this board. We're going to do an overview of our services related to strategic planning and consulting, grant writing, technical assistance that we provide to cities and county governments, nonprofits across Middle Tennessee in terms of trying to secure state and federal funds for infrastructure and community development projects. We're also going to feature a presentation by our research team, particularly, namely Joanna McCall, who's an expert in the application of an economic impact model called M-Plan for art to sort of give us an ability to look at the return on an investment of infrastructure investments or community development projects, either before we make those investments to help us prioritize them for funding, or to look at the impacts of an investment after it's made in terms of its returns to the economy. We're also going to be looking at some of the services that we provide around capital improvement planning to help you all position yourselves for success when it comes to bringing in state and federal grants into your community. So again, today we're going to focus on the comprehensive economic development strategy. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we prepare this document with you all, and then what our process will be to update it for the next 5-year horizon that we're looking at through the effort. So let me start at the right slide. So most of you are aware we're designated, GNRC is designated by the U.S. Economic Development Administration as the Economic Development District for Northern Middle Tennessee. We have a similar designation from the state government. We're the Development District for Northern Middle Tennessee and work directly with the state Department of Economic and Community Development and other agencies to support job creation. But when it comes to the federal government, EDA is looking to this body and our organization to inform them as to how they invest in infrastructure and programs to support job creation and retention across Middle Tennessee. So in this role, we essentially convene regional partners to define what our economic strategy is going to be moving forward. I should point out GNRC staff isn't authoring that economic vision, but facilitating economic development professionals from the public and private sectors to define that vision. And then our role as staff is to make sure that we're aligning public policies that influence where investments are going into public infrastructure programs to grow that economy. The history of the EDA dates back to 1965 through an act of Congress that created the EDA, but also the Public Works and Economic Development program that funds infrastructure projects across America, namely those projects that can help increase the competitiveness of the U.S. In the emerging global economy. And so we rely a lot on our partners at EDA to find funding to invest in job creating infrastructure across Middle Tennessee. I should also point out that this was an interesting era in the nation's history. Here in the 60s, obviously, we had civil rights movement going on, but we also saw a series of congressional acts that created requirements for cities and counties to collaborate together across shared markets. And so the Economic Development District is a manifestation of that movement at the federal level, but so was the creation of MPOs for the purposes of coordinating transportation planning decisions, transportation improvement decisions through a regional planning process. Similarly, there was a congressional act that established requirements for area agencies on aging, which is another role that GNRC fulfills, which is to convene regional partners to prioritize how to invest federal funds into social services to help an older adult population in our region as it ages beyond working age. So this was a really important time in terms of the nation's history for mobilizing regional partnerships to be thoughtful about how we invest federal funds within our communities. So the comprehensive economic development strategy is a document that has a 5-year vision. The last document was adopted in 2021 and extends through 2026, but it essentially lays out our economic vision for Middle Tennessee and pulls together a set of actions and strategies for us to align public policies and investment strategies to help facilitate the implementation of that vision. Why it matters? It allows us to get ahead of the game to attract and retain jobs. Oftentimes, I know you're out and about in the community, there's a sentiment that with the rapid pace of growth and development, infrastructure and public programs haven't necessarily kept up with the rapid pace of growth. The SEDS is an opportunity for us to think about the growth that's headed this way and make sure we're doing the things now to lay the groundwork to accommodate that growth. So that's one of the reasons why this document is important. Two, to align public policies and investments in land use and infrastructure with the vision that public and private sector officials have for how they intend to invest in the economy. It's also an opportunity here, number three, to minimize the just natural conflicts that exist between competing objectives of economic development, but also, say, land conservation or preservation efforts to protect our rural countryside or character and charm. The more we can talk about how we're going to grow as a region, the more we can make sure that we're doing the things necessary to protect things that we love about Middle Tennessee as we continue to grow and develop. Number four here is just having this strategy in place allows us to respond more quickly to economic disruptions, whether it be a pandemic or a major natural disaster. The SEDS is required to anticipate disruptions to the economy and lay out a game plan for how we intend to respond to those disruptions. And then finally, if none of those other reasons matter as much to you, this last reason is really important, is that our region must have a SEDS in place and it must be in compliance with federal regulations in order for any of you all to qualify for funding out of the Economic Development Administration. And sometimes by extension, other federal agencies who want to see that the region has gotten on the same page with respect to how it is asking the federal government to invest within its market. So the required components of the document are an economic profile in terms of the state of our economy today, as well as a projection for how we intend the economy to grow into the future. Some of this economic profile is based on our forecast of trends, but also it's defined by conversations with economic development partners as to what they're trying to create in terms of a future economy. We also convened partners from public and private sector to conduct a SWOT analysis to identify strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats to our economy. And then ultimately, we convened to establish goals and objectives and a set of actions and performance measures to make sure that we're accountable to each other, the public and investors in our region as to the steps that we need to take to support a growing economy. I mentioned the current strategy was adopted back in 2021 with a 5-year horizon through 2026. It's available online at gnrc.org/SEDS. Within it, you'll find regional growth projections, economic and market trends, the SWOT analysis that we conducted with partners last time around, and then the action plan, which really is what lays out our guiding principles, our goals and objectives, and the things that we plan to do together to benefit the economy. To get to that document, I want to give a shout out to Amy Napoli sitting behind me. She's our Director of Economic and Community Development. We hired her about the time we were starting this process 5 years ago, and she was just tremendous at getting out to partners across Middle Tennessee to get them engaged in this planning effort. So you can see here some metrics related to our community and stakeholder outreach. This regional council body was also actively engaged in the development of the plan. We are currently scoping our outreach efforts for this major update. Some of that's going to depend on how consistent is the current document with the current state of the economy in terms of representing the current state, as well as our continued aspirations. If we've deviated a lot from our vision from 5 years ago, we'll likely do a much deeper dive into our outreach strategy than if what we're trying to do is simply reinforce that vision and bring to bear additional resources. That might be a little bit higher level of not superficial, but maybe a sort of a thinner outreach effort this time around, just so we're not wearing people out with just constant planning, asking the same questions over and getting the same answers. So we'll be sensitive to everybody's contributions last time around. These slides, which are available online at gnrc.org/slides/council, will provide you more information about guiding principles, which are equitable, resilient, innovative, sustainable, and we'll get into that now, but just to remind you of what we were trying to achieve through the strategy. And then we had 4 goals: to be prepared and aligned, to be invested and competitive, to be coordinated and connected, and to be vibrant and livable as a region. You can read more about these goals and the actions that were recommended to help us achieve those goals. I did, before I talk about the process to update this document, want to talk about some of the things that we've accomplished since the 5-year strategy was put into place in 2021. First, this body has voted on a couple of occasions related to initiatives to help us expand the revolving loan fund that we offered small businesses across the region that need gap financing to continue to grow their businesses and hire more people, retain jobs. And so you can see there a list of accomplishments related to our revolving loan fund. We've also applied for a competitive grant through EDA and was awarded funding to help our local communities plan for future disasters. And so we're working on a toolkit to help you assess your resiliency. And then some of this funding is underwriting our costs to work with you to update your local land use policies, your building codes, your zoning, your capital improvement plans to make sure those things are prepared in a way that bring resiliency to your community. And so the grant is funding both the toolkit, but also our staff time to work with you to make sure that as you invest in infrastructure, it's done in a way that minimizes the risk from potential disasters moving forward. Since the adoption of the SEDS, our team has helped local communities across Middle Tennessee bring in or manage more than $50 million worth of state and federal grants. Tremendous job done by our economic and community development team led by Amy, working every single day on grant applications on your behalf. If you're awarded money, we're at your disposal to manage that project for you to get all the way through completion in compliance with all the regulations and requirements that come with grant awards. 3 more accomplishments since we adopted the current SEDS. One is we built internal capacity for economic impact modeling. I mentioned Joanna's presentation in December showcasing the application of M-Plan. We're going to look at the daycare expansion investments in Gallatin, the Shalom Zone added daycare capacity. We're going to look at the economic impact of that investment as a showcase of the power of that tool in December. We also received a competitive grant from Tennessee ECD for developing a regional inventory of brownfield properties to make those properties eligible for additional grants out of the state and hopefully by extension the federal government for cleanup and remediation so that these brownfield sites can be positioned to private investment for additional job growth across Middle Tennessee. And then we've also worked very put in a lot of work with TDOT and the governor's administration to improve funding, increase funding levels, and bring new transportation implementation strategies to TDOT to address the backlog of transportation needs across Middle Tennessee and the state as a whole. So those are some of the accomplishments that are really based on efforts derived from the conversations that we had as a group when we developed the last comprehensive economic development strategy. So we are updating the document now to look ahead to the next 5 years. That entails really 3 parts: accounting for the indicators of economic success. So going back and looking at the performance of the economy and the performance of the entities that are responsible for laying good groundwork for economic growth, measuring our progress since the last update, reaffirming the indicators that we want to track to measure success moving forward is step 1. Another step would be reaffirming or updating the regional vision for economic growth. Like I mentioned earlier, if everything if what we established 5 years ago seems consistent with where we are in our mindset today, it's more of a reaffirmation of that vision. But if we've shifted at all in terms of what we're trying to accomplish as a region as a result of circumstances, we'll have an opportunity to reset that vision. And then finally, and this is really the meat of it, is reaffirming or updating the goals, objectives, and the actions that each of us would be responsible for taking to support economic prosperity into the future. All this can be tracked at GNRC.org/SEDS as we get underway here. We do have planned convenings of leaders and experts across the region, namely the Economic Development Advisory Committee of the GNRC, which is made up of the 13 business reps across the region appointed by county mayors that sit on this council. There's a few in the room today, Jamari with Davidson County, Chris with Sumner County, May with Charlesdale County are on this Economic Development Advisory Committee in addition to this regional council body. I'll talk a little bit more about that group in a minute, but they are responsible for working more directly with staff on the development of the document itself. But we've also got plans to do the standard outreach to the various chambers of commerce and ECD officials, state agencies, and community leaders that are engaged in the day-to-day of economic development. And then we'll, through these meetings and other committees and roundtables, make sure that the membership of the regional council is kept in the loop as we develop this product, because ultimately it'll come back to you for adoption in the next few months. A little bit more about this Economic Development Advisory Committee before I wrap up. It is made up of, like I said, the 13 county business representatives. These are experts in economic development locally that are appointed by county mayors to serve on this regional council body. But we also invite 3 of our social equity representatives from the counties to serve on the committee, and then 3 mayoral representatives. I believe the 3 mayors that were on the committee last time have all left office, so we'll be looking for volunteers from this group to serve on this Economic Development Advisory Committee. Now, many of the mayors are letting us know how they want to be involved in GNRC through the mayor's poll that has been distributed. One of the committees that we're asking about is this committee through that poll. So if you've already taken that poll and didn't indicate your interest, just reach out to us and we can get you plugged into this specific committee. But its purpose and duties are essentially to frame the conversation, help establish those goals and objectives, and just serve as an ambassador for the work that we're doing regionally as they engage in their local efforts or in their conversations with state and federal partners in their own projects. The ask of you all today is to help us launch the effort by completing it's a very short survey online here, gnrc.org/survey/SEDGE 2025. I'll put the link in the recap email that goes out by the end of the week. But what we're asking you to do is help us understand the current state of your economy, just in your own words. What makes your economy, your local economy, unique within the context of the region or the state? What are your strengths as you perceive them? What are the challenges that you're facing? What kind of help do you need from us or state and federal partners? Do you have a local strategy in place? If so, if you could share that with us. So those are the types of questions that you'll find in the survey. It shouldn't take you more than about 10 minutes. You can do it as many times as you want. If you have an additional thought in the future, you can share the link with your staff or your partners as well. So, Mr. Chair, that's what we have this morning. I'm looking forward to the December 10th meeting where we'll have some of the staff present to you in a more specific way some of the services within planning and ECD that support our economic development initiatives.
Thank you, Michael. Any comment or question about what you've heard? Just wouldn't be a meeting without a SEDS presentation, would it?
Sounds like a disease.
All right. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is an action item, resolution proclaiming October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Certainly something we all need to be aware of. Before I introduce Sarah, I'll need a motion and a second to get this resolution on the floor. Thank you, Mayor. Second. Thank you for that second. Okay. Without further ado, Sarah Van Wormer, City of Brentwood, will recognize you and give us a presentation.
Good morning, friends. I recognize a lot of you from last year when I was here. So for those of you that are new to me, I'm Sarah Van Wormer. I'm the technology director for the City of Brentwood. I am representing our IT Directors Roundtable group that GNRC hosts. And I just want to do a little bit of an introduction to that for those of you that aren't familiar with it. It's a group of us from Middle Tennessee primarily that meet about every 3 months or so. And we talk about all kinds of things, cybersecurity obviously being one of them. We talk about grant opportunities. We talk about staffing. I think one of the biggest values that we get from that is our relationships with each other. And obviously it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And probably like us, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Day every day in your entities. We don't ever stop thinking about it. We don't stop fighting it. We don't stop sending you the phishing campaigns ever. So one of the things that we talk about in our group is what are we doing? What is Rutherford County doing? What is Brentwood doing? What is Thompson Station doing? There's a huge value in us being together as that group. So when we had our incident last April, I think it was, I called the people in my roundtable group, like, what are you guys doing? Who do you call? What is happening in Michigan? We had a very clear plan of who we called. We had a group called MIC3. We called this the Michigan State Police. I'm going to introduce Chief Allen here in just a moment because he's going to talk to you about a plan that they're looking to put in place in Tennessee for cybersecurity. And it's very, very cool. We had an event in July where Chief Allen and a couple of his cohorts came in and talked to us about this initiative that they're putting into, well, you're proposing to the state right at the moment, right, Chief Allen? So, but what that would do for us is that gives us a very clear plan of who do you call when something happens? Do you call lawyers? Do you call your friends? Do you call a remediation company? Who do you call, right? So Chief Allen's going to talk to us about a plan that they're putting in place. As I said, if you have IT people that are not coming to us for our roundtables, again, I'm going to highly encourage you to send them to us. We have so many relationships that we've gotten from that have helped us a ton. I'd like to bring up Chief Allen to talk to you about his initiative.
Thanks, sir. Somebody stole my picture from somewhere. We'll get off that one. There we go. So I am Chief Allen. I'm the Cyber Protection Defense Officer for the Tennessee National Guard. Fancy title just means I'm a planner. My responsibility is things like this: doing the outreach, doing the communication, working with our community partners, our regional partners, our state partners, our federal partners, building the relationships that Sarah talked about. What we have found, as she spoke, that when an incident happens, if it's a natural disaster, Tennessee, we're pretty good at that, right? If trees come down, block a highway, we know how to get the National Guard out there to support that. Cyber is one of those things. It's a blanket statement that a lot of people don't fully understand unless you live that world every day. And like Sarah said, it's Cyber Awareness Month, which means it's Wednesday. Currently, just a little bit of background of cyber and what we do within the state of Tennessee. So we have about 200 National Guard soldiers split between the Army and the Air, in the Air National Guard in the state of Tennessee. And those are anything from true, deep, in-depth cyber defenders. And we'll just leave it at that because we can't attack anything, and certainly not from here. As well as IT. And what we have learned over the years is that if you don't have someone who knows knows networking, knows those parts and pieces, the other guys are kind of left out in the breeze a little bit. So good relationships built together. We also have an intel cell that is focused primarily on cyber intel. So when an event happens in Fairview and we need to look at it and say, how does this fit into a bigger picture, and what within the state could also be affected by that? And then how do we push that information up to the federal side to get information fed back down to us so that we can share that information across everybody? Like I said, we have about 200 people. Currently, we have one full-time person, me. And so it's my job when the call comes in and says, hey, we're having an issue, we need cyber support. I'm the one who triggers that ball on the Army and Air side to get the personnel mobilized and moving forward on that one. Some of the engagements that we've done, CrowdStrike, that was as typical, and Sarah can attest to this. Nothing happens on a Monday. It happens on a Friday afternoon at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So you're scrambling all weekend. That's exactly how that one happened. Everything in the state computer networks went down because of a attack that was going on. Through relationships that I have with my state counterparts, we were able to explain to them how to mobilize the National Guard to bring people in. And by Monday morning, I had an additional 25 or 30 people on the ground ready to support them to get everyone back online. And we expected that it was going to take 2 to 3 weeks, and we got it done in about 6 days. Election support, we all know that the elections have been questionable. Let me back up. The voting machines have been in question for years. So how do we defend against that kind of stuff? Not the elections, but the election machines, things like that. We do that by doing vulnerability assessment. So what wireless networks are available in the area? How could an attacker attack the computer system at the county clerk's office or wherever the voting is happening? We come in and look at that. We generally get out of uniform when we do that. We blend in. We have certain legal requirements on what we can do in uniform, what we can do out of uniform. And it really comes down to who's paying us and how that goes in. Local support is things like this, involving the communities, letting you guys know what's available, how to get that support, how to get those things interagency. That goes to the water, power, Homeland Security, pick an agency. National support, again, the federal side, the SLC GP, that is a program that's out there with some funding dollars tied to it that allows us to come in and do assessments on your network at no cost to you guys, to have your network assessed by an external auditor that we're all trained in the capabilities of being able to do. So, cyber incident response team, as you talked about in some other states, there are cyber incident response teams that are stood up and manned 24 hours a day. Challenges, as you guys all can imagine, funding, financing, manning, equipping, all those things are all tied into it. So we're working on some of our peers in the other states, my counterparts in the other states, on how they did it, how they got there to build their cyber incident response teams. What that gives is that gives the state of Tennessee the capability to have a manned cyber incident response team that's available 24 hours a day should an event happen. We're in the development stage of this right now. We're moving it forward. It's moving rapidly. I've been working on it, as I was telling Sarah earlier. I've been working on it for about 6 years, and the ball is starting to really start rolling. We've involved academia. So we've got some universities within the state of Tennessee that are assisting in this program with us, both from a technical perspective as well as the legislatures and all those parts and pieces on how we tie all that stuff together, because I'm just an Army guy that eats dirt. So all that stuff gets involved. So our mission statement, as you would expect, defend the state against cyber attacks, emerging threats. Cyber is growing, hence why we're here, why we're trying to adopt Cyber Awareness Month to make people more aware of what's going on in the cyber realm. So dual missions, we have a state mission. The National Guard has a state mission with the SLTT, so state, local, tribal territories. We're represented in all 54 states and territories under the U.S., as well as we have more into our federal mission. The Tennessee National Guard partners with Bulgaria. So once a quarter, we go over to Bulgaria and spend a week or 2 in Bulgaria doing this same kind of conversation, talking about cyber, training on cyber, planning on cyber, hands on keyboard, some with senior leadership in the country of Bulgaria, some with the actual workers, the keyboard guys on building and maintaining a more resilient environment in that region of the world. Current lines of effort that we're looking at for our cyber emergency response team, and this is predominantly focused within here in Tennessee. So cyber hygiene assessment. Again, back to the disease that you guys were talking about earlier. Same kind of thing in the cyber realm, right? How are you keeping your networks clean? How are you to policies, procedures, all of those parts and pieces can be evaluated through a cyber hygiene assessment. We do them within the military once a quarter. They're painful, as basically it's an audit, right? So just think audit when we talk about cyber hygiene assessment, but it's an audit of your cyber preparedness. Penetration testing. This is where we could have the ability to come into your network and actually simulate an attack in a very controlled fashion so that your operators have something to respond to. And you then get a validation of, hey, we're really good in these areas. We need to work in these areas, and go from there. Threat intelligence. How do you guys get any cyber threat intelligence from your organizations or from the state? Okay, so what we have found in some areas, there's no threat intelligence getting delivered down. So you never know, unless you're friends with your neighbors, what's going on in their county, city, whatever. We want to be the sole provider for threat intelligence for the state of Tennessee, pushing out a simple email with some bullets on it, some links that say, hey, here's the things that are going on in the world to be on the lookout for. Whether it's ATM skimming, whether it's, passwords for bank accounts, whatever it happens to be. I like to focus more on the individual users. So the members of our community, as opposed to the leadership, because we're all supposed to be in the know when we know everything, right? I'm sure you get told that on a regular basis. But Grandma Ethel doesn't know that she can't use Kitty1234 as her password on every website that she goes to. So how do we get that information pushed down? And I think it's through organizations like this, and through building relationships. Incident response team. This is our quick reactionary force. Throw our military terms into there. This is, hey, our computers are all showing a screen saying send 5,000 Bitcoin to this address. What do I do? As Sarah said, who do I call? Do I call the lawyers? Do I call the PR team? Yes, you're going to end up calling everybody, and that's going to be our recommendation. When we would come on site for an incident response, we would expect that there would be a coordinator from your authority chain that says, here's what you can talk about, here's what you can't talk about. We have pre-canned non-disclosure agreements, memorandums of understanding of what we can and can't do, and where we can share that information at. And that creates a challenge in the civilian world because everybody wants to keep their information and not admit the fact that they had a breach. But if nobody knows that anybody's having a breach, then nobody's doing anything about it. Forensic support. We've done some of this already with the Homeland Security and TBI. They have a great forensic support team, but it's really small. So they always need boots on the ground and additional people to help that. Cyber exercise and outreach. So this is the outreach kind of piece where we talk to you guys and we talk to your city units that support your guys' connectivity and operations. And then the exercise is the actual hands-on keyboard stuff that we talked about, whether we do it in a lab environment where we simulate what your network looks like. And when I talk about your network, we're talking about everything from your administrative network to your operational technology network, your water plants, your sewer plants, your power supply, what runs the city that you're responsible for and how is it being protected. We can simulate all of that and have your operators actually be hands-on keyboard as we throw scenarios at them, and instead of just saying, well, what would you do in this case? And it's like, oh, in a perfect world, I do this. Okay, you're not in a perfect world because I'm just going to pivot and come in a different way and attack in a different fashion. So that's basically what we're working on right now. We are probably 12 to, if I had to guess, 12 to 18 months out from getting this fully fleshed out, certified through the state, getting the plans and procedures in place of should a city have an event, what do you do? How does it operate? It's all rolling under Emergency Support Function 17, which is cyber, which has not been ratified by the state. So we've got all these caveats, and I'm sure you guys deal with the same kind of stuff where B has to happen before A can happen after C happens. And it's like quadratic formula. It's trying to figure out how some of this stuff works. But that's what I have for my side of the presentation. Are there any questions from anybody in the room?
Questions for Chief Allen?
Sir.
All that's kind of over my head. Can I get to give this, do I need to give this to my tech guy?
You can.
Because he busted me 2 or 3 times. He sent me an email that the governor's wife wanted to come tour Robertson County. Of course, I bid. But this is something he needs to read, right? Be involved in. He's pretty sharp.
Certainly, and I can give you my contact information. I'm sure it's been put out in the packets. My contact information, I'm a primary point of contact. Again, we're at the current stage, presentations like this, discussions with your IT team to help us understand what your IT teams need and what your cyber teams need, helps us define our repertoire of things that we can provide. And I have personnel that I can bring on at no charge to do a 2-3 hour discussion to work through some of those things and figure out where they're at, what they're going, and help them distill it down. A lot of technical people live in the technical world and can't talk at a high level world and say, here's big picture. Now let the technical guys go do their thing, which I've thought for years in my life of like, just let me do the technical stuff. You stay out of my way. Now I'm the guy that's in the way. But yes, absolutely. Reach out. Again, my contact information is available. If you want to grab me in the hallway, I'll give you my business card. You can pass it on. We are more than happy to talk about what's going on, what we're doing, and how we can assist the state of Tennessee.
Other questions?
So if I understood correctly, you're trying to become the resource for the state as it relates to preparedness and response, but also awareness as well.
Correct.
And how would that integrate with what the Fusion Center currently does as it relates to threat assessments, which typically I know are more under other law enforcement types of functions, not necessarily always on cybersecurity, but, and I'm not part of the Fusion Center here in Tennessee, but
Sure.
So
that is a partnership that we've had for years, is with the Fusion Center. So I receive information from them. I also receive it from a dozen other sources. And I'm one that believes that people in key leadership roles have key leadership responsibilities. And if they're overwhelmed with stuff, I'll read it later, and later never happens. So what consolidated information makes sense? If I'm talking about something that's happening in Nebraska, but we haven't seen that in Tennessee, how important is that to me? If I'm in Clarksville and I find out about something that's happening in Nashville, might be a little bit more important. Does that make sense? Sure. So we want to consolidate that information, working with the Fusion Center, working with our TBI partners, working with Homeland Security to get a consolidated regional and ideally state of Tennessee level, what's going on, right? If skimmers are appearing on our gas pumps, as an example, if skimmers are appearing on our gas pumps here in Tennessee, they're probably appearing in our neighboring state. So we share that information on our side. That doesn't always make it if Alabama has skimmers on their gas pumps, but Tennessee isn't seeing it. People just ignore it and go, well, it's not us, doesn't pertain to us. But from my level of seeing at the national and international level, what's going on in the world. Because one of the things that has really started to come out in the last couple of years, there are no boundaries to cyber anymore, right? I can sit in my living room and hit every city within the state of Tennessee from my living room. I can be in Bulgaria and hit every city in the state of Tennessee. So where is that information pertinent, and where is the right information at the right time in the right format for me to digest it in a quick enough fashion to go, Joe, I need you to take a look at this and explain this one to me because I don't understand what it's saying here, but it's happening in our region. How do we share that information a little bit better? I think Fusion Center is doing great at it. Hopefully we don't have anybody Fusion Center in the room, right? That's a concept that was developed after 9/11 that has never really gotten any teeth. And so the communication piece that was identified after 9/11 with the Fusion Centers being developed and everything else, as we say in the military, briefs well, but it hasn't come into fruition. And that's where we're starting to see those things build in neighboring states and other states across the country that Tennessee wants to follow and be a leadership in some of those areas. And we're already being looked at. Everybody's watching what Tennessee is doing right now. My peers are watching us so they can go, okay, can I get that whole packet on how we do those things? You talked about the funding for the economic development. There's a whole set of funding that's available for cybersecurity. how do we get some of that funding into your guys' hands so that you're not taking money that you need to replace a police car with and you can use to replace a firewall to help defend your network? How do we get that type of information shared out? Not just threat intelligence, but that type of information as well. The money that you guys are spending to have your vulnerability assessments done so that you can roll up under the cyber insurance program. A lot of money is being spent on that the Tennessee National Guard could do at a much reduced cost, which makes it much better for the whole state because now that bucket of money that they're using to pay for that cybersecurity insurance policy doesn't have to be spent as much. My guys get more training, your guys get more training, our relationships get built. We all know what we're walking into should an event happens. So when you talk about that communication piece, and I don't want to take away from the Fusion Cell, I think they do a good job, but they're just sending out information that they're getting from other resources as well. Does that make sense? Thanks, sir.
Other questions or comments?
Alan, thank you for being here. I'm not sure if you saw the piece on 60 Minutes this week. Retired NSA director, former four-star Air Force general, speaking to how nation states are embedded inside small local utilities and on a pretty mass scale. So this group is mostly elected executives for local governments, economic development, workforce development partners. Can you speak a little bit as to what's going on in terms of outreach training, how we get this information to our utility partners? Because I mean, the threat is global and ever present, but there are certain systems, if they go offline, that creates a greater disruption and existential threat. So just curious as to, what's happening as it relates to our water, gas, electric, so on, sewer.
Yes. Water is a funny one, right? Because like 3 days without water in the world,
Absolutely.
we go to Armageddon. And so like, as I learn more and more about that side of things, it's a little scary. And so we are currently working with the Tennessee Emergency Management Agencies and the emergency support coordinators that support all of the water treatment facilities within the state of Tennessee. They don't own them, they don't manage them, but they support them. So we're working with those emergency support coordinators as our way in, if you will, to continue those conversations. We did a briefing 2 weeks ago and had the emergency support coordinator for the water utilities within the state of Tennessee come to us and say, I want you to come and brief to all of our water community. We'll just take water as an example. All of our water community on one, what are our threats? What are we looking at? What are the challenges going to be? Two, how do we defend against it? How do you do an assessment on our network? How do you do these things? Because they just don't have the internal resource to do it. We've also looked into some grant programs to put in some pretty expensive cybersecurity equipment for low funding, low revenue generating water treatment, which I suspect we haven't gotten the numbers back from those guys to find out what does that really encompass in the state. But I think we have a fair amount of facilities that are they're not generating millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. And I don't remember off the top of my head what the cutoff is, but it basically eliminates about $200,000 worth of equipment that the company that manufactures the equipment is willing to give to support this problem. And it goes from water purification to power plants to water treatment, pick a category. They're all underserved because as long as you walk to the sink and turn the water on, you're not thinking about how that water got there, all those parts and pieces that go along with that. And so it's through programs like this, and that's part of our outreach. How do we share information that we're aware of from a federal side, from a state side, from one county to another? What are you doing? What are you guys doing? Hey, your operational technology equipment that you have, we've gone in and done some cyber awareness assessments, and they're like, oh, it's air gapped. Well, how do you connect air gapped, meaning it's not connected to the internet? And we're like, okay, but how do you connect to manage that piece of equipment? Oh, well, I do this. Okay, so it's not completely air gapped, right? You look at the incident that happened in Florida with the water treatment plant where they cranked up the chlorine. Had those two guys not just been sitting there drinking coffee and seeing the mouse move across the screen and see it change the chlorine levels, they had nothing in place to detect that. And they corrected it like 3 times before they called anybody and said, hey, something's weird. And then that triggered the cascaded event. And that was tied in, if you know the history of that particular incident, that was tied in with where the Super Bowl was going to be held. So if I over chlorinated all the water where the Super Bowl was going to be held, then that takes out and makes sick a lot of people. And then you have cascading effects because now you've got everybody who's sick going to the hospital because why am I throwing up? What's going on? So now you've overloaded your EMS systems, right? They're all cascading effects. And where do we get the firewall in place to block? And by firewall, just how do we stop that cascade of effects? And so when we do our scenarios, that's what we do. It's not like, oh, can I get into this piece of equipment? It's like, what can I do when I get into that piece of equipment? We've broken into IP connected coffee pots and then hopped over onto the administrative network and then hopped over onto the utility network that manages HVAC system controls, manages whatever. That's the training that we get on how to do that. The Army teaches us how to do that type of stuff that most organizations are like, well, you can get into this. It's like, okay, but when I get into that, where can I go from there? And so we'll build the scenarios. And if it's a junior team, we'll start small and build up. We're not going to come in guns blazing when we do an assessment just to show that, hey, you failed. Because I've been on that side as a National Guardsman. I've been in the civilian employment. I've been on the government employee side and on the federal side, which is where I'm currently at. So I've been through all kinds of different positions. And I don't like working for a civilian company and having a consulting company come in and tell my boss, here's how bad your employee is, right? That makes no one happy. So how do we teach, train, educate everyone to get past some of those things? So we're working on it. And it's through contacts like this where you talk to your water guy and go, hey, this National Guard guy came and talked, here's contact information. We have another relationship. Another relationship. And before long, we all know what's going on in all the water areas. And not building an empire, but then I have a full-time staff, our cyber incident response team, that's all they do is monitor all that stuff. Right now, it's just me, so I'm a busy camper. Any other questions, ma'am? Did you have one?
Yes. So my son-in-law actually is an engineer and code writer for CrowdStrike. And for years, he's aggravated me with changing passwords every week. And then I have to, call him and find out what passwords are. So I never, every week I'm like, okay, I can't get into this or that. And I never realized how important this is until I was at St. Thomas when they had an incident happen, which shut all their computers down for 2 months. That was horrible. Went in for a medical procedure and everything had to be hand walked, nothing computerized. It was a really bad situation. And then I'm really proud of Fairview because we have an IT group there that it's also aggravating, but this is so important because they send us tests that we have to take every single, it feels like it's every single week. And the initial test was like 8 hours. And who has time for all of that? But then they'll send us little, they'll send us an email and see who opens it. But it's like you said, it's controlled. But, you wouldn't believe how many people just open it and then boom, you've got, all of this, like malware and stuff infiltrating. So I can't speak to how important this is. And, to me, it was just aggravating now. My son-in-law sat me down and explained exactly how many people get affected by this. And then my business just recently got hit for $4,000. And I own a small business, so $4,000 is a lot of money. And so when we got the police involved in that, it was a group out of the country. So it's like if you don't protect what you've got and, you know, are from utilities to your own personal stuff at home, you know, it's so rampant now. And having someone in the business in my family, he just makes me aware of, you know, how important it really is to, you know, protect, you know, be protected. So.
This is why those of us don't sleep much. We know the things that go bump in the night are like, okay, when's it gonna hit? Right? Not if it's gonna hit, but when it's gonna hit. So.
Any more comment or question? Michael?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Chief Allen and Sarah for being with us, sharing their expertise and time. This could be an overwhelming issue. I think to boil it down, though, our responsibility is to remain aware of the threats. And then to the extent that you can advocate for budgets to be provided to empower the experts within your organizations to do the work that they do to protect us all. I think that's really important. Really proud of our team. Internally, we've got Angie Hutchinson, our office manager, Kenny Henry, our chief legal counsel, and Kristen Scuderi, our chief of staff, who are the day-to-day responsible parties for making sure we're doing the things that we can, which include the 4 itemized bullet points that are the feature of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's sort of low-hanging fruit that we could all wrap our head around to protect ourselves. And then in other words, I think what we'd encourage you to do is Mayor Vogel, send your IT director to the roundtable that Sarah's a part of, and it could be a good conduit between your community and the experts that are out there to help you protect your community assets. And to that end, I want to thank Peter Westerholm on our team who convenes the IT directors roundtable and is responsible for preparing the information for you all today.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We still have the resolution before us, GNRC 2026-02. We have it properly motioned and second. Any more comment or question regarding the resolution? Are you ready to vote? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no, and that resolution is adopted. Again, thank you to Sarah and to Chief Allen. Regular reports, Chair's report. Michael's mentioned the mayor's poll. It's very important that we get that poll done, so we'll be able to drive forward, and the said survey. So please do that as well. And I want to say thank you to everybody for being here today. We had a quorum right at the beginning, so it was nice to see that. So that concludes my report. Michael, on to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of items for you all. Look ahead to upcoming events. Busy calendar for the remainder of this 2025 calendar year. November 19th, in this room, the Transportation Policy Board will convene to endorse the first draft of the Regional Transportation Plan to get sent over to TDOT and our federal partners for their compliance review. This is a plan that we are scheduled to adopt in March of 2026. Really important document to direct federal investments in transportation infrastructure across Middle Tennessee. December 3rd, you should have all received an email from Michelle with the save the date information for our annual partner appreciation and excellence awards reception. We're going to host this at Nissan Stadium in the evening of December 3rd. You can find information online at gnrc.org/calendar. If you just go to the calendar and this date, you can follow along with the logistics and register when that link is available. I think we'll have another email blast go out Monday with links, maybe Tuesday with links to the registration, but encourage you to all participate in that. And then December 10th is the next convening of this group, where we'll have part 2 of the community development initiatives that we have underway across the region, just update you on everything else that's going on. Speaking of the partner appreciation and awards event, you can see here photos from last year's event, which was just a really fun time at the Johnny Cash restaurant and bar downtown Nashville. Looking forward to an equally, if not more, entertaining event on December 3rd. But nominations are now open for the Regional Excellence Awards. We give out 4 awards at this event each year, an award for leadership, one for achievement, one for collaboration. We also honor a legislator of the year. So you can go to that link. You could also find this link on the calendar, but nominate a colleague, coworker, friend for one of these awards. The deadline for nominations is November 12th. Looking forward to reading those nominations. As far as my wrap up here, I did Want to recognize Trousdale County Mayor Jack McCall, who is being honored by the Tennessee Federation of Aging, on Aging,
For aging.
or aging, which is, he's being,
I'm doing it well.
he's
He's aging so.
he was
well.
reading the text that I just sent him to let him know that I was about to.
Get that.
I don't see that listed as a criteria, but it does recognize you for exceptional advocacy on behalf of older persons whose and your efforts have resulted in meaningful and measurable benefits for adults within your community. It's awarded to elected officials who really champion quality of life, sustained quality of life for us all as we grow older. So I want to thank you for that effort. The official recognition will be made at the annual conference coming up here in the last week of October. A little bit about the Tennessee Federation for the Aging. It's made up of GNRC as the area agency on aging and disability and our counterparts across the state. But it also includes representatives from senior activity centers, the older adult community, law enforcement, professionals in legal, healthcare, and financial services that support older adults in their day-to-day, and then providers of in-home services and other things that help people age in place for as long as possible. So a really important group, really tremendous honor and recognition for you. Appreciate everything you do for our region on this issue and everything else that we work on together. So looking forward to that recognition for you later this month. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll.
Mayor McCall, your name was called. Do you have any remarks, rebuttal to what he just said? We're all for aging and not of aging. Got it.
And Mr. Chair, it's sitting with me. I failed to mention Corey Johns as another member of our Economic Development Advisory Committee when I was going around the table. That's always the risk, right? Jamari, May, Chris, and Corey representing Wilson County.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Michael? Any other business to come before the board? All hearts and minds are clear. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion been made and properly seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you for being here.